Feeling right on listen of right. We needed some time to recover after that last episode. I'm sure that you think that it's safe to say that, Ryan. But hey, look, now that it's back down to business here, Ryan, see this and right here, going to put this back on. And I didn't know if you knew or not, breaking news, we're not allowed to give our opinions on this podcast, and we have to absolutely stay as serious as can be. So, Ryan, you tell me what this episode is about. I want to listen up.
Oh man, I can't take it with the I don't know what to think anymore with all the jokes and everything that's going on. But yeah, today we got some injury news for you guys. We thought we'd bring out a video talking about the injuries because unfortunately we said it during the all season about all the injuries we had to deal with last year, and we were hoping it wasn't going to be like this come this time this year, but unfortunately it's been injuries, the main headline and main story this year for UConn so far.
Yeah, so in this episode, Ryan, we're going to, again, very seriously, we're going to discuss how UConn can get over these injuries.
Yeah, and some some news before we get into the injury discussion.
What I tell you, Ryan, no laughing now. See, you can't hold it back.
Yeah, well, this isn't laughing. What I'm
No.
what I'm about to bring up. This is pretty serious, and
Okay.
I apologize for missing this. I guess I saw it after our recap video after the Maryland game was
Oh,
over.
Gino's mother, yes.
Yeah, but
Mm-hmm.
Gino's mother passed away at the age of 90.
Mm,
Our thoughts and prayers, obviously, with
for
Gino and his
sure.
family. I'm sure
Yes.
it's not an easy thing to deal with when obviously losing his mother and trying
Mm.
to deal with that, and while the season's in full swing and trying to balance losing his mother and coaching the team. I'm sure it's not easy.
No, and our thoughts and condolences again go out to him and his family. Yeah, I actually felt very guilty about that. That we didn't know about the news on the last episode, but yeah, I wanted to reach out to him and yeah, so sorry for his loss. And it is definitely adds a lot more pressure. I don't care how great you are as far as coaching goes. It adds a lot of pressure, whether you're the greatest or whether you're the worst of all time as far as coaching. It adds a lot more pressure on you when you have to deal with something off of the court to that nature, because to me, that's definitely nothing else is worse than losing a loved one, and especially your mother.
Yeah, and I believe it did happen before the game on Sunday against Maryland, so I'm sure that was in his mind. Like I said, all day, and just trying to coach and be there for the team as well. I'm sure it wasn't easy, but some more news talking about the injuries. 6 of UConn's 12 players have missed one or more games this season, and Gino said, "quote With each day that goes by, we're close to getting them back. So this week really comes at a good time for us." So obviously, the week off, they played Maryland on Sunday and play Florida State again this upcoming Sunday at 1 o'clock. So I do agree with Gino there. It's a pretty good week if they're obviously they don't get to choose, but this comes at really a perfect time, like you said, with 3 really big players out. Nika and Dorka, obviously the 2 biggest, and AZ already expected to miss at least 2 more weeks. But so this week and Florida State game, hopefully they get Dorka back. I think she's kind of trending upwards, but like I said, AZ's still out for 2 more weeks. Assuming we get Dorka back on Sunday, I think that would mean Dorka and Aaliyah would be in the starting lineup. Aubrey, Amari, Ayana coming off the bench, and I think if Nika is unable to play, I think we could see 3 forwards on the floor like we saw a little bit in that Maryland game. I would love to see Amari continuing to get playing time. And with the lack of guards, if Nika is out, I think it's very likely we see 3 forwards out there at the same time. Now, I have to say, Ines did play good last Sunday. Caroline played okay, and Lou, she played good, but like I said, she got in foul trouble. So it's obviously not the same without AZ and Nika. I think by having Dorka, Aaliyah, and Aubrey on the floor, you're not really losing that much offense. And I have to say, I'm really disappointed in the way Caroline played on Sunday. She had 2 good games against Iowa and Providence, then struggled the next 2. So she played okay against Maryland, but she did play 40 minutes. So I'm just saying, from what we saw last year, we know she's very talented, very gifted scoring guard. And unfortunately, we just haven't seen that same level of production that we saw last year.
Yeah, if you said very well. If you ask me, the biggest factor, Ryan, and this could not come at a better time, was the week off, like you mentioned, because they don't play another team again until they don't have another game again until Florida State. And if you want to ask me, this is arguably the most dangerous unranked team. All right. And coming into this Sunday coming up at 1 o'clock, Florida State, I believe they're 10-1, Ryan. So again, this is no easy task. But if you ask me, factor that in with Anae Betancourt. And who would have ever imagined her starting into getting slammed right away into that starting role as far as point guard? That she's done an incredible job, if you ask me. And again, I think that that's what matters the most right now is the getting the big break so that the players that are not out for the season can eventually return, make their way and return slowly and healthy, right? Healthy. And then again, Ines Betancourt, keep your eye on her because I really like her start again, being a freshman. You got to remember that. I really like how that she's played so far into that starting role. So yeah, that's the big, again, that's why I wanted to come on with you today. And it's not really, that big of a news, but I think if you're in this situation, UConn with these players out and hurt, man, I mean, this is a big week off. If you ask me, I know no games, but still a huge time to recover.
Yeah, and talking about Ines, I mean, about 200 days ago, I think it was her first time in the U.S. at all. So just for her to come to Connecticut and really just bond with the team the way she's
Mhm.
had, I see her, having a great time
Yeah.
with the teammates on the bench. And just like you said, for her to be thrown into the starting lineup because of all these injuries,
Yeah.
she did do very well for her first starting gig last Sunday against Maryland. But I just really hope they get Dorka back because I think they'll be fine against Florida State on Sunday. If they do get Dorka back, I think she'll provide a massive boost on
Yeah, I
offense.
agree.
But I'm still nervous though about
Yeah.
Nika. If she's out, all the turnovers that UConn is committing, I think against Florida State, Seton Hall, that they should be okay. But when UConn travels to Creighton, I really hope Nika is back for that game because Creighton is definitely no pushover for a Big East team this season. So even though Ines played great and in her first starting game, it's just without Nika on the floor. I mean, we all saw it against Maryland. There's just no, I don't want to say chemistry, but it's just a lack of a main and primary ball handler to make all the decisions out there. And just Nika is so familiar with this UConn offense, and she's such a great passer. So that really hurt them on Sunday.
You might look at me like I'm crazy here, Ryan, but again, this video is titled "How Can UConn Overcome Injuries and again rise to the top?" I still think they can, but it's going to be very tough. And I don't know as far as that top spot if we'll ever see it this season. But again, I got my eyes on next season, 23 to 24. But again, we're speaking about this season. How do they overcome these injuries, Ryan? You're going to look at me like I'm crazy. I expect when these star players come back healthy and you can get a solid rotation out again, to be honest with you, I think the key is to not. Yeah, and I said that is to not go with the same starting lineup every single game once you get these players back healthy, because that kind of makes the ones sitting on the bench rust up, even though if they're seeing time in the second, third, and fourth. I think that the key, Ryan, and I want to bring it up to you. I think the key is to really keep spreading the ball around and not lock in just one starting lineup to go with for every game down the stretch of January, February, and March. I want to see again. We keep saying it. Amari DeBerry. I need to
Yeah.
see a lot more of this player, man, down the stretch.
Yeah, and I definitely don't disagree with you, and I would love to see that too. But unfortunately, I think when we get Dorka and Nika eventually back, and of course Azy as well, I think it's going to be the same starting lineup. I don't think Gino is going to change it. I don't really think he ever has. I think usually he does stay with
Yeah.
the same starting lineup. So, but you know, I completely agree. I would love to see Amari get more playing time. Aubrey has been doing a great job filling in for Dorka Juhas while she's been out. So both her and Aubrey coming off the bench, or her and Amari coming off the bench is great, a great boost for UConn. I'm sure we won't see a Ness when AZ and Nika come back. But yeah, I mean, and also, you know, it's just the team. There's so much depth on this team as well. We talked about that a lot. But yeah, I mean, I think the starting lineup is going to stay the same despite, you know, how good the players have been doing filling in for each other. But you know, it's a great starting lineup, and we talked about all the injured players that are on the bench, and you could probably make a starting lineup out of them as well. But yeah, I think moving forward, I don't really think the starting lineup really matters though. You know, just hopefully Gino lets Amari play and get some of these players more involved. I think everybody would like to see that. But yeah, I mean, I think when we get these injured players back, I think that'll just elevate the offense and the defense even more.
All right, let's get into comments, Ryan. They came through very well on that list video. And I know we saw a different side to these subscribers that we've never seen before. And you know that. So we have to get ready. I don't want your response to be, well, I don't have a comment for that, because these are some very tough ones. I need you to very much break these down for me and see what you think. Let's go ahead and start off with Marcia Clark, because she pretty much sums up last week. In a nutshell. Let's go over her comment. Marcia Clark, too many turnovers, not enough shots made. Maryland shot the lights out. Abby Myers, in particular, I was proud of the younger UConn players stepping up. Edwards has been so steady, it just wasn't enough. Maryland played well, and they've been tested too. They lost a lot of their top players and seemed to keep finding a way. I give them props. Also, thank you both for supporting women's basketball. Phil, I know you're getting some hate, but we appreciate you both. Ryan, you said it. Well, Phil, what did you expect when you put on that Maryland jersey?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, definitely, thank you, appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, hats off to Maryland. I said it last week as well. They played great, and they had three of their main players out as well, like she just mentioned. So, you know, Maryland definitely stepped up to the test. But you know, it's not like UConn got blown out by having all those players injured. So UConn did play good as well, but unfortunately not good enough to win. So yeah, I mean, I just think it, like she said, it was just too many turnovers, and not having Nika out there for defense, not having AZ scoring. It's just UConn didn't really have enough time to prepare for a team like Maryland, and prepare for all these injuries that they did suffer just a couple days before losing Nika. So, you know, hopefully, I think that's one of the keys, and we'll talk about that probably in the last check-in video. But that's going to be one of the keys for this upcoming week against Florida State, is definitely limiting the turnovers.
Yeah, I do apologize if I got into people's feelings too much, but hey, I mean, a loss is a loss. But and you know, AZ, I probably have to admit, Ryan, AZ with AZ on the floor, yes, they probably would have won that game. But what's it for? A little bit of heated discussion, like I always like. How
Yeah.
about Nicholas? Nicholas goes, UConn had a D3. Now keep in mind, this school is known for bringing in top recruits out of high school. Keep that in mind, Ryan. UConn had a D3 player bringing the ball up the court. UConn is in trouble. Their season may be over if they don't recover.
Well, I mean, I don't think their season is over, because it's not like, I mean, thank God not all these players that are injured now are out for the season. But I think when they get these three players back, I think we'll begin to see more of the team we saw in the first couple games of the season. So I wouldn't necessarily say the season is over quite yet, but it's definitely going to be a challenge to try to get through March Madness, I think. And even the Big East as well, because the Big East is very tough this season. So getting through the Big East tournament and into March Madness, it's going to be really interesting to see what seed they get, what teams they have to play. But you know, the teams like South Carolina, Notre Dame, NC State, well, of course they already beat them, but Stanford, I think it's just going to be really tough to try to beat those teams. I think it's definitely possible. I'm not ruling UConn out, but it's definitely going to be a challenge.
Yeah, comments to like, do you even watch games? Do you know what you're talking about? I mean, Ryan, you tell me. We actually we have watched games together. We have taken notes, and then you said it. You and I have got some disrespect before about actually coming on and and just giving the stats right on the air. So yeah, it's interesting because you could watch the whole game and still get discredited and say, hey, did you could watch the whole game and then they still say, did you watch the game?
Yeah, well, I mean, last year, I mean that's why we improved so much. And like I told you, because last year, we didn't watch most of the games until probably later on in the season. So, like I said before, we tried to improve a lot from last year to this year. And I think so far we've done a pretty good job of that. If you compare the videos last year to where we were, honestly, probably just reading off the box score for most of the recap. But I try my best to give the best recap for all of these games this season, and I'm definitely watching all of the games for this season, even the ones that are out of market. So I think we're definitely doing a pretty good job compared to last year from this year.
This is interesting again because Ryan, I haven't seen these emotions come out until UConn drops in the rankings and they take losses. Gen X reacts goes the true UConn fans are proud of the grit and fight they put on the floor, confused on why a UConn podcast would be so negative on UConn. Phil, is it UConn for clicks? Sad to watch. On top of all of this, Gino's mother died in the eighth. Tough times, but bleed blue, fair weather fans. Well, again, Ryan, we discussed that. What do you? I mean, do you actually? I'm asking you, Ryan. Do you want us to come on and say, yeah, it's a beautiful day, even if UConn loses?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's obviously tough for everybody because like we said before, UConn's a team that is not used to losing. So I think these past two seasons have been pretty rough in terms of just dealing with something that Gino's really never dealt with before, and so many injuries all at one time, and just trying to figure out new players and not a new system, but just just bringing new players and different starting lineups. And I don't know how many different starting lineups they didn't have last year, and we've already seen about three different ones this year already as well. So it's definitely getting rough around here, but but hopefully this Sunday UConn can bring it all together against Florida State, and hopefully we can all be happy again. Hopefully we can get back into the win column.
Bobby Lance, Ryan, your partner really expects the UConn recruits to win every game because they're highly recruited. This guy knows nothing about the sport. The sport he really expects losing Nika would be made up by another guard who's hardly played. This guy is a joke.
Wow, well that's a pretty rough one. That's
But
pretty
again, let's
brutal.
go
But
ahead and remember that comment. I'm not rooting for UConn to lose, but let's remember that comment if they go on as the drought continues and not win a championship, especially with this core group that they have. So let's just remember that.
yeah, and we talked so much about it being as a team, and I think more than, I mean, last season as well. But if you compare or just combine last season to this season, when you talk about a team effort, it really has been these past 2 years with everybody going in and out all the time. So I mean, every player on the roster has been used this season so far, and I mean, who thought a Ness would see the court at all this year, and definitely not in the starting lineup. But yeah, I mean, it is pretty amazing how with all the injuries that UConn has and really all the unknowns that they were able to stick with Maryland for honestly the whole game and really make it I mean, they made it a game. They didn't get blown out, but it definitely will be a team effort, and I'm sure all of these amazing recruits that UConn is getting, they're going to continue to play a role this season, and I would imagine that they would see some type of role next season as well.
Wow, Alan Lee. Wow, I'm glad you were wearing that Ravens cap because your true colors are showing. You really think AZ wouldn't make difference. At least Ryan actually sees what's happening, and you have the nerve to be flaunting this Maryland win. They won, like I said. That's not why I listen to you too. Maryland is a talented team that will waste away another season. Sure, they get excited because they knew this was their chance to give that signature win. This wasn't impressive. Your gloating is ridiculous. Do you really think that this is what UConn viewers want to hear from you? Disappointed. By the way, yes, I was at the game cheering on my Huskies, not rooting for the home team.
Yeah, I mean, and these comments are brutal, huh? But
But
yeah,
I bring it up to you again, Ryan. We don't point out the negatives as far as say it was a 20 turnover game, but they still won in the Final Four. Win is a win and a loss is a loss. It's never going to change.
yeah, and I've talked about that before, how pretty much every team that UConn's going to play is going to, every team that UConn faces is going to give it more than 100% all the time. And it's just something that comes with winning, and everybody has to deal with it. That, I mean, everybody just knows that UConn, every team that plays UConn is just going to come as hard as they can, as fast as they can, and probably play their best game of the whole entire year to just try to say that they beat UConn. And like I said, that just comes with over time, just UConn winning so much. And pretty frankly, I mean, who else rather than UConn fans wants to see UConn win? Probably not too many people nowadays. So, it's just something that I think just comes with winning. And, Maryland has a very good team. They always do with Brenda Freeze. I'm sure we'll see them in March Madness. And who knows? I mean, they might get knocked out in the first round. They might make the Final Four. Let's see what happens.
Uh, Haley goes, UConn did immensely well for having their entire starting lineup out with injuries. People were expecting this game to be a blowout, and they stayed in it until the very end, showed amazing resilience and a good sign for the rest of the season.
Yeah, that's a very good point. It is a good sign for the rest of the season, because I think, I mean, obviously, if they deal with more injuries, let's hope not when they get all of these players back finally healthy. But I mean, I think this game just goes to show how deep this team really is, and no matter how many injuries they might have, already having 2 players out for the season, 3 players being injured, only having 7 available for the game. It just goes to show the fight that UConn really has, and just the chemistry. I think overall, with all the coaches, all the players, everybody knows what to expect out of each other. I don't think it's really a surprise that UConn is able to stay with one of the better teams, which is Maryland, and give them a game despite only having 7 players.
Yeah, and let's see, Daniel Ring, Maryland's players who are currently injured are nowhere near as talented as UConn's players that are injured. It's not the amount of players, it's talent. Yeah, and Ryan, and remember what I've always told you, no matter what sport it is, it comes down to one team, not 2, but 1.
Yeah, I mean, there can only be one team that wins, and one team that wins it all and wins the championship every single year. So no matter how talented one team is or not talented the other team is, at the end there's only going to be one, and anything can happen on any any single given day. So I mean, we've seen that as well last year. But yeah, I mean, I think it just goes to show that anything can happen, and that's why March Madness is always so exciting, because you really just throw all the numbers out of the window, and you can't really predict injuries. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be exciting once we get deeper and deeper into the season.
How about 2 more, Ryan? 34 ST Zoo. Now listen, see, he's heading towards my side of the argument. It's hard to believe they still lost to Maryland. We had our heavy hitters on the bench, and what was on the floor still could have pulled out the win. Turnovers killed us. So do you see somebody leaning towards my, but then the other person says, "Nah, what a joke." I mean, is it is it too much to actually expect big things from the younger players? What do you want to do? Sit here and say, no, the younger ones, Ryan, they won't do anything.
Yeah, and I mean, we always have to believe in the younger players that they are going to step up and like we expect them to always do, step up and give them give us their all and show everybody what they can do and try to prove themselves and try to prove to Gino that they deserve more minutes, much like Amari DeBerry is trying to do, even though she's not really a freshman anymore.
And then Rachel Fight, people like to say that Gino doesn't have it anymore as a coach. Then we watch games like this that prove that he is still one of the best. They were on the road against a top 20 team. No one thought this would be close, single digit loss, and we came back from being down by 15 at one point. We didn't go away. Brenda Freese knows that if her team had been facing UConn with their entire roster healthy, this would have been a blowout loss for them. Even just having 2 to 3 of the 5 injured players would have made this a likely L for them. They knew this was their best shot at beating UConn for the foreseeable future. Other than Edwards, who played like a stud, the 6 other available UConn players wouldn't have been starters back in June. We are mostly playing bench players right now, but can still contend until we reload over the next few weeks. Also, love seeing Paige coaching Ines for the game. You can tell she is committed to helping the team as much as she can right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know who would say that, that Gino doesn't have it anymore because he's certainly, obviously, probably the greatest coach of all time, and he definitely still can coach with the best of them. But yeah, I mean, I think for, I mean, besides probably Aaliyah and Lou, because I think Lou is probably going to stay in the starting lineup when we do get Dorka, Nika, and AZ Fudd back. But yeah, I mean, I think Lou played okay, but if she would have not gotten into foul trouble, I think she probably would have made a much bigger of an impact and been able to score a lot more because I mean, she's such a dynamic scorer. That's what Gino brought her to UConn to do, was just score the basketball and try to give which would have been Paige Beckers, but now of course AZ Fudd, just try to boost the offense even more. But unfortunately, she got into foul trouble, wasn't able to play much during that game. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's definitely a good sign that everybody was able to step up in that game, keep it close. Both teams played very well, but I think Maryland is definitely no pushover. They're going to be in March Madness, probably try to make another deep run like they have the past couple seasons. And like I said, hopefully we get all of these players back healthy within the next couple weeks, and hopefully we get to see more UConn dominant basketball going into the Big East tournament, going into March Madness.
We want to see happy comments. So that takes winning, right? That takes winning. You're not at fault. I'm not at fault for the injuries and the losing. Make sure everyone knows that, Ryan. We're just here to discuss it. Ryan, we'll be back Saturday morning to discuss the FSU last check-in. Saturday morning, Phil and Ryan, listen up.